Claims to the machine gun of the old formation were only of an ideological nature. The box was distinguished by a thoughtful manner of operation, which turned into a somewhat overestimated fuel consumption. All shortcomings were redeemed by reliability. With a stable change of transmission oil every 70,000 kilometers, the part is able to cross the mark of 200,000 kilometers in health. But with the new 6-speed automatic, problems often happen with lower mileage. True, a significant part of the difficulties were solved by dealers under warranty, albeit with the periodic use of legal tools in the form of a lawyer or even the criminal code. By itself, the nature of the diseases of the KIA Cerato automatic transmission with 6 steps varies. Someone breaks the valve body, which is why the unit jumps gears when braking. Someone suffers from an inhibitor or selector position sensor, which leads to an emergency operation of the unit. Someone else has something else happen. It is noteworthy that in a healthy state, the modern automatic Cerato works adequately, giving the car a very peppy and economical character. Surprisingly, with the mechanics, everything is also not entirely smooth. By 100,000 kilometers, the synchronizer clutches and the blocking ring of the third stage wear out badly. A symptom of the disease is the difficult inclusion of the third gear, which is accompanied by a noticeable crunch. Often this requires replacement of the clutch disc and release bearing. Engine. Not without sins and a line of motors. They have Cerato only gasoline, with a volume of 1.6, 126 horsepower, 156 newton meters, and 2.0 liters, 150 horsepower, 194 newton meters. Of course, the more affordable option occupies the vast majority of the market, and it is with it that problems often arise. By 50,000 kilometers, the throttle becomes clogged, which causes floating idle speed. And if suddenly the exhaust tract passes dust, then there is a risk of scuffing of the frail hardening coating of the cylinders of not the strongest aluminum block. Already by 130 to 150,000 kilometers, new piston rings, as well as main and connecting rod bearings, may be needed. In addition, the engine is demanding on the quality of fuel, despite the fact that the manufacturer allows AI 92 gasoline to be poured into the tank. So after 100,000 kilometers, the converter may die, the estimated cost of which is 40,000 rubles. Surprisingly, jams also happen to the fuel tank. Firstly, due to the stuck valve of the filler neck button, a strong vacuum is created in the tank, which should be treated immediately, otherwise the pressure may burst the tank. Secondly, there have been cases when the fuel gauge float loses its orientation. How little gasoline inside, the arrow shows the same level. Often, by 100,000 mileage, Cerato with 1.6 loses in dynamics. Most often, the cause of the blues is the timing chain stretching, especially if the first owner abused higher gears during operation. This fact puzzles the CVVT variable valve timing system. If the chain suddenly jumps, an overhaul of the engine cannot be avoided. Against this background, a possible oil leak is far from the worst thing. It can leak in several places at once, from the valve cover, timing chain cover, crankshaft rear oil seal. This is because instead of conventional gaskets, sealant is often used here, aging in 5 years. Against this background, a 2-liter engine can be safely considered trouble-free. The timing drive is chain, and the block is cast iron. The term of its painless operation is 200 to 250,000 kilometers. Only ignition coils can disturb, which are enough for thousands of 30 to 40 kilometers, and a coolant temperature sensor, which still needs to be monitored. Suspension. The chassis is very ordinary, McPherson front struts and a semi-independent beam at the back. Despite this, the chassis cannot boast of age-old reliability, although it cannot be called too capricious. The front suspension requires increased attention to the levers, shock absorbers. They don't like weight load, wheel bearings, 50 to 60,000 kilometers, CV joint anthers. Usually somewhere around 50,000 kilometers, although in some cases the problem occurs up to 30,000 kilometers. The latter wear out and allow debris to pass through. Having saved on protective rubber bands, over time you may be faced with the need to find 18,000 rubles for an axle shaft assembly with both hinges. It is noteworthy that the same for the related Hyundai Elantra is significantly cheaper. A semi-independent rear beam lives longer without intervention than, say, a multi-link SID that is not alien to Cerato. You will have to pay for this with less precise handling and possibly a complete lack of maintenance by the previous owner, which at the turn of 80,000 kilometers may still result in the need for repairs. In small things, The main troubles of KIA Cerato are finishing materials. They age indecently quickly. A car with an odometer reading of 50 to 60,000 on the steering wheel and gearshift lever can easily pull twice as much mileage. The windshield is overcome by scratches, and in extreme cold it sometimes cracks spontaneously. Body. The corrosion resistance of the metal is good, but still not outstanding. Basically, the area that previously lost paint suffers from the external environment. The paintwork itself, however, scratches quite quickly, especially if on weekends the car often drove through the branches of country alleys.